Hey everybody, welcome to Woodward Tigers here at woodwardsports.com. And of course, if you're watching us on Woodward Tigers, our YouTube channel, and you're not subscribed, please subscribe, or also on the Tiger Mining Report YouTube channel as well. So sorry for running a little late, folks, with the Pistons draft, catching up with everything, and overall just kind of letting the Woodward Pistons guys do their thing. I know baseball and basketball, two separate things, but the city of Detroit is pretty pumped for the pick of Ivy out of Purdue. Gives the Pistons a good backcourt, and that's all I know. I mean, like, it's when you focus on one sport, it does kind of. Although I feel like in a way I'm a glutton for punishment because I'm focusing on the Tigers a lot, and it's a constant. It's a challenge, but I mean, I do enjoy other sports. I mean, we all talk Big Ten football here and there. I'm a big Michigan basketball person as well, and so we all have our things. We're just talking about Iowa basketball too, just recently because of Murray, who went to Sacramento. But anyway, find us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartMedia, and Stitcher, and now on Spreaker. So also, if you want to have any emails for the show, reach us up at woodwardtigers@gmail.com. And thanks to our friends over at oddstrader.com as our presenting sponsor. I honestly, when they've been doing the after game show, so might as well just keep up with the theme of anything. So,
wait, now what is the new place we're on? The new platform? Sprinkler?
Speaker or speaker?
Oh, Speaker.
Yeah, Speaker.
I don't know any of these things. Did people? Well, whatever. I just use the damn iPhone one, but I guess some people use Spotify.
Yeah, everybody's a little different. I listen to our show on Spotify because I love Spotify and I like the playlist and everything. And I do have Apple Podcasts every once in a while, but plenty to get to this evening. Avila got bashed by the Athletic. Then there was a prominent Detroit news writer saying something, and he got raked to the coals. Get to that. Tigers get swept in Boston. They have the Diamondbacks this weekend before they head out for a 2-game series with San Francisco. I had to look that up. So I was organizing the rest of the week because I have a planner and I try to plan everything out, content and all that stuff. And I was looking at it. I'm like, why 2 games to San Francisco? Why can't it be a 3-game series? But either way, the Tigers kick off a 3-game series with the Diamondbacks starting tomorrow. We'll get on that. There's a lot of baseball news. Aaron Judge has been doing things. Isaac Paredes is also hitting home runs, and whether it's and Chris has some thoughts about that. I know for a fact you do because a lot of the Tiger fans right now we're trying to go, oh, told you so. Nope. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear you say that you told me or anybody else so. You didn't. So cut it out. And we'll get to that. I think we're going to do a segment called Cut It Out because I feel like there's been a lot of that tomfoolery lately. But nevertheless, and we also got quite a bit of questions. We have Mark in our Twitter inbox DMing some really good questions about Avila too. So, but let's get right into it. I wanted to start with the piece in the Athletic, and I wanted to give this opportunity for Yooper to let him have a platform that he's had for quite a long time. And it's one of those things where I was looking through the comment section, and Ken Rumdahl did a fantastic job on the piece. If you have not checked it out, go to the Athletic and go in the baseball section. Ken, you almost forget sometimes because he's always out doing things on TV that he writes, not on purpose, but he is good at his craft. He's one of the best. And either way, so he put Primus Avila on task. Essentially, there's a couple quotables. We'll get to that in a second. But Yooper, one of the things that I specifically messaged you yesterday when I saw some of the comments that the local media hasn't really bashed Avila. They've been sticking up for him. And I know they talk about Chris McCoskey and Lynn Henning, and that's fair to a certain extent. But I don't know who these people are, what they read. Did I miss something? Did I not miss you every other month at Motor City Bengals as I edited your work? Not put Avila on task. I know you're an angry blog, blah, 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 blah. But you had a platform. So go ahead, Yooper. Take it away, because I'm trying not to be so close-minded, narrow-minded as just us. But good God, man.
I hear you. Well, I'll tell you, it was a great piece by Ken Rosenthal. And, by being a big-name national guy who's on television, who's on Fox Network and was on MLB Network and everything else, obviously he has that platform, and that's going to make a big impact especially since the Tigers have been the dregs now for several years and have been an afterthought amongst the big name journalists. To have Rosenthal parachute in and basically drop a nuke on the stadium for Avila, it was going to have a big impact. So I can understand why people had a real strong reaction to it, especially fans who are upset with Avila and the direction of the club. But yeah, it was a little unfair, I thought, to say that people hadn't been on the trail, on the scent of the Avila not getting this done. I thank you for pointing out the fact that I have, but there have been others as well. I'm certainly not in a club of one, So it was pretty evident to me. I was okay with things right until the off season of 2020, when they just didn't do anything. They made, and the response I got was that it's too early. And that to me felt really bogus for a team with a low payroll in a medium market who has spent in the past and has shown the ability to do it. With the money coming in, they were making really no effort to compete. That was the end for me. It was kind of time to get the clock ticking, that either they're going to put up or shut up. And then in May, I wrote another thing basically saying they're 9-23. They were 9-24 last year. They're no better. They are literally days away from having to make a decision, because I just did not think that you could let him be at the head of another draft or another trade deadline. Now, it looks like he's going to be, but I think that the proof was there that they didn't turn it around. They're not turning it around this year. It's not going to happen. They might play a little better, because it's hard to play much worse than what we've seen. But I think with Rosenthal puts the seal of approval on the whole thing. And I just wonder if that is what's going to give Chris Ilitch permission in his own mind to let's do something else. I don't know. What do you think?
Sorry, the Pistons made it. Looks like the Pistons made a.
Yeah, they made some wild trades. They traded up. They got Jalen Duran, and then they also traded for Kemba Walker. But
they moved him to the Pistons.
Kemba Walker, yeah, apparently.
Really?
Duran, yeah. Yeah, I thought in my head, I almost thought that, like, whenever you see a piece by a big national writer that goes in on one team, I almost feel like that was, and not to say that like Ken Rosenthal just is a gun for hire or anything like that, but you almost feel like that was something that was sanctioned and almost not necessarily approved, but maybe suggested by ownership. Like, hey, why don't you write about how bad we are?
Yeah.
I don't think that would ever happen, but it does. I feel like there's something more behind the scenes there. And but yeah, the idea that we pride ourselves on being fair, right? Like, we don't talk, endless amounts of smack about Al Avila, but we also don't. We praise things that we like, and we talk. We complain about things that we don't like. We've written stories for many years. All of us, I think, have written stories about the Tigers' failings in various regards, and that Rosenthal piece touched on them all.
Yep.
The inability to find players in the Latin market, what other teams are succeeding there. I mean, it's so hard to look at like the Twins or the Guardians and see all these young, interesting Latin players that they've brought along through their system, position players, and some of them aren't stars, but some of them are pretty darn good. And just to look at what the Tigers have done, and it's been nothing basically. And the drafts haven't worked out so great. And we've talked endlessly about their inability to find any bats outside of the first round. And really, if we're being honest, even in the first round, they haven't found many bats. And Riley Green looks great, but so I don't know. I think at this point, you wonder. I don't know if it would do any good to fire Al Avila right now. I mean, you're not going to blow out the entire like scouting staff and entire front office right now, right? Because the draft is in 3 weeks, so it would be a complete chaos. But you don't. I mean, I'm not really looking forward to him pulling the trigger on any picks. You could probably behind the scenes kind of neuter his power and say, no, let's have some fun. Let's let the other guys pick this one. But that may be the way it goes anyway. With the general manager gets the blame and the credit, but he may not have any real say anyway. It might just be Scott Pleiss, but I don't know. It does feel like running the wall.
Is it going to be kind of one of those scenarios where he gets the demotion via promotion? They kick up his title. He becomes some kind of president or something,
special assistant or something. Yeah. Or
I absolutely, I could see him be somebody. I don't remember who suggested it, but he becomes the president of operations or whatever, and somebody else becomes the GM.
Yeah.
It basically makes the day-to-day calls. Yeah, I could absolutely see that. It depends on I don't know what the relationship between Chris Ilitch and Avila is, how close they are. That's the Lions, talking about the Detroit Lions back in the day, they used to talk about how William Clay Ford would just hang out with Matt Millen. Like once a week, they'd sit down and chat, and he enjoyed his time. And that's what made it so hard for him to fire him forever. I don't know if Ilitch and Avila are good buddies or what, but yeah, it's time. I don't know. It's just the record is the record. That's all you have to point at. Avila has tried for basically 3 seasons since he became GM, right? He tried in 2016, they tried again in 2017, and they've tried in 2022. In 2016, they got close. But those free agents that they signed ended up being pretty disastrous. And this year, I don't want to say anything about these free agents. I wouldn't say they're disastrous. The early results have been really bad. They weren't through the first month, but Javi Baez is really picking up right now. So maybe, who knows, he's on a hot streak. I don't think you could have predicted that Eduardo Rodriguez would have marital issues. But yeah, so there's that. But yeah, it just hasn't worked. And it's sports, and it's a results-based business, and the results haven't been there. So I think it's time to move on. And Ken Rosenthal summed it up nicely.
Yes, and he did. And look, and the reason why I pull up the quotes here for watching on YouTube is some of the quotes from the article. And one of the quotes that said from Avila is, "I'm as angry as everybody, more than angry than anybody." It's almost sounded like a kind of a weird rhyming scheme there, but with that. But we're all angry. We're all accountable, including the players. Right now, we're reevaluating and scrutinizing everything in the front office, player development, scouting, our staff, and our players. When this happens, it's not one person or department. This is team-wide, end quote. The problem with that quote is, to me, is you have a completely brand new personnel staff underneath you. I mean, Littlefield and Chad are not part of the brain trust anymore. They're off their special assignments or whatever they're doing. Or is Chad still doing stuff, right? Technically,
yeah, Chad is a vice president. So Littlefield is gone. He's not listed on the front office anymore. Chad is still listed as a vice president. I don't know. The thing that stuck out to me about that quote, and you never know with quotes, whatever. But normally you'd say we're all accountable, including me, and he says we're all accountable, including the players. It was well, yes, okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna. Yeah. I was gonna highlight that because it's just okay, so Eduardo Rodriguez he's going through a personal crisis right now. That's not his own fault. That's just things happen. Things affecting players a certain way. I mean, you can say what you will about Tucker Barnhart, but that's what you got with him. You can say the same thing with Spencer Torkelson. He's not going to make adjustments because he doesn't believe in it. Whatever excuse you want to believe and what have you, but you put this team together. You're the one that knows that. So I don't understand the logic behind that statement when everybody, to look at everybody around you, I'm not going to blame Brian Garco. I'm not going to blame, you can't only blame that certain kind of accountability, kind of buddy, whatever you want to, kind of buddy. So who's Avila's kind of buddy? Is it David Chad? Is it, there's a certain, when that statement to me it sounds like empty calories to me. It just doesn't make any sense. and doesn't really. And a lot of times there's like this fear of putting him behind the camera because sometimes he fumbles over his words just as much as I do. But I'm not a GM, and I know what I am. But Toledo makes a great point there in our YouTube chat. With Green moving up to the Tigers, have one player in MLB Pipe 100 after all those years, year after year of all those picks. That's all. I mean, you can. Spencer Torkelson was up there for a minute. You have Jackson Joe, but it doesn't matter. And then you see today on Baseball America that and Yooper did a fantastic job of throwing out there and Yooper masterclass on that the Tigers are projected to pick 2 high school pitchers. It's like Baseball America is like saying. They're almost and Baseball America, fantastic organization. JJ Cooper, Jeff, all those guys over there. But it's almost like telling the Tiger fans, "Hey, look, F you. We're gonna torture you again." Like some sort of sinister laugh. But in my opinion, I like now I'm working in a press box. I just can't go off the cuff and say anything. But there's enough evidence there to support this, and it's been there. Remember both of us, Yooper, got grilled before by the Tigers PR department about how negative we were towards Avila.
Yes.
Myself included. You wouldn't, and it's just the same thing. But I can't, you can defend the Candelario trade. You can, but to a certain extent, but then Candelario's taking a huge step back. And Dickerson mentioned that yesterday or the day before on the broadcast. It's not the same thing. The Tigers, fundamentally, there's so much wrong with the Tigers that we've been talking about this for months. The lack of depth. We lack of depth. And everyone's like, no, they'll be fine. No. What happens? Isaac Paredes gets traded, which needed to happen because they had depth at a position. They went with Candelario over Paredes, and that was the right thing to do. Did they expect Jonathan Scope to fall off the effing bridge? No. But would have been cheaper to keep him. Like no one expected this from Paredes, and that's the next thing I'm going to get to. Paredes is having a week. He's having a week. So I don't know, Chris. You pulled up some interesting stats about Paredes that match up from his stuff from last year.
Yeah, well, I feel there's a little bit of egg on my face here. Because I wrote an article for MCB last year where I basically said, I said Isaac Paredes has a fatal flaw, and it was his ability to hit for power, which was something we thought he would do coming up through the minors and something he did through the minors. But in the majors, it seemed like every time he hit a ball, it died at the warning track, or he just didn't seem like he was all that good of a hitter. And suddenly this year, he's got what does he have? 9 home runs now, 7 home runs. He had a 3 home run in the game, 4 home runs in 4 straight. At bats, not plate appearances, but 4 straight at bats. And so it just kind of feels annoying. It's one of those things where, like, as soon as they traded him to Tampa, there was a certain segment of the fan base that was like, well, watch him hit 35 home runs now because Tampa does everything right and the Tigers do everything wrong, and like it was just kind of a tongue-in-cheek joke. But then so far, it's kind of been like that, and it's frustrating because I think everybody liked that trade. I mean, Fangraphs wrote that they thought Tampa won the trade because they thought that Paredes apparently would do what he's doing. None of us thought that would happen just based on what we'd seen from him. But the weird thing to me is, and I was looking at it yesterday, there is absolutely nothing different about his batted ball data this year,
right,
as compared to last year. Average exit velocity is almost identical. Let's see, 85.5 last year, 85.8 this year. That's below league average, by the way. His launch angle, 18 degrees last year, 18.5 degrees this year. He's actually hitting the sweet spot less, 9% less this year. His expected batting average is down 20 points, but his expected slugging is up 100 points. So I don't know. He's increased his hard hit rate. So I don't know. It's just one of those weird things where, like, he was not a guy who was hitting the ball hard at all, and apparently he's just learned how to yank it in the right spot down the left field line. And maybe we could have seen that coming, but I don't know. Like, and I've said it before. I don't think this was like an Avila decision necessarily to not play Isaac Paredes last year. I think that was AJ Hinch. AJ Hinch, I think he really likes Willie Castro, and Castro got more at bats than Paredes did last year. Zach Short got a lot more at bats last year. So I think it's just one of those things. It's annoying, but I don't think anybody really hated the trade at the time, right? It seemed like a completely fine. It was a trade. They got a left-handed outfielder who's hit for power and walked. And this year, he hasn't hit for any power, and nobody can quite explain it.
And also Meadows had 3 years control left, which was fantastic. Sure. So I think I was looking at some of those numbers yesterday after he hit the 3 home runs. He's still hitting about 215. You're right. I think he's still the same guy. I really do. I don't think I'm in a matter of a couple of months. I don't think the Rays have quote unquote fixed Isaac Paredes. My guess is this 3 home run bender that he went on is a distant memory by July. I'm just going to go on a limb here and say that he quiets down and he's basically the guy that we've seen. I hope nothing but the best for him, but
right.
I think people are just a little. I think when you couple it with the Tigers' struggles, it's easy to grasp onto this and say, "Oh my God, look at what Paredes is doing."
Yeah, especially against the Yankees. I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, people are still, I think, a little bit upset from the Eugenio Suarez deal, where suddenly the guy they gave away went on to hit 50 home runs or whatever. But no, my tinfoil hat theory was that they were using the special balls because the Yankees were down there in Tampa, and they draw a lot of fans to Tampa because that's where the Yankees play, and or in the minors at least, or spring training. But and we know from last year that they were using different balls in different games, and I hate being like a kook like that, but we know that they were doing it, so it's super frustrating and angry, and I don't know, but
yeah,
we'll see how he keeps hitting once the Yankees leave town.
It's time for Rogelio and Chris to go inside the numbers.
All right, I mixed that there by accident. Pressed the 2 buttons at the same time, but it still sounded pretty good, actually. I'm not gonna say accidentally. Not bad for being on the ones and twos. So it is time.
A little tribe.
Nope. Brown. Oh, it is time for Inside the Numbers. And Yooper, what is your Inside the Number for this week?
All right. My 2 numbers this week are 91 and 155. So that would be the WCR plus. The 91 is the WCR plus for Andrew Vaughn last year as a rookie with the White Sox. And the 155 is what he's sporting today, is WRC plus for the White Sox. I've been watching a fair amount of White Sox. I watched almost the whole White Sox Blue Jays series. And I watched quite a bit of I see a lot of the White Sox as it is. He looks like a different guy this year. You can see year 2 is just a light's gone on for him. He's not hitting a ton of power. He's hitting for more power. He's slugging 505, but he's hitting a lot of line drives, and he looks just like a different guy. He looks confident. I think he's got multi-hit games in 7 out of his last 10. He's moved up to second in the order. Vaughn has slashed his strikeout rate about 6 points, like from 22 to 16%. So he's really looking good. The easy, and this is probably too easy, but I'm making the comparison to Torkelson. Pac-10 first baseman. Vaughn was 3rd overall pick. Torkelson number 1, close enough. Both stars in the Cape Cod League with the Wood Bats. Torkelson definitely doing less than I thought he would do. I didn't think he was going to light the world on fire, but I thought we'd see more than this. But, when you look back last year, Vaughn had some struggle to his game as well. He ended up hitting 235, but he kind of came on late to do some of that. I'm just hoping that we see Spencer Torkelson get on a similar path with Andrew Vaughn. They have a lot of similarities in their backgrounds. So hopefully they can stay on a parallel path, and we see some improvement from Torkelson along the lines of what Andrew Vaughn is doing, because he's been very impressive. I don't know what it is. He came to the plate a couple times this week. He had that 4-hit game. You just could feel that base hit was coming. So he looks very confident.
All right, Chris, what is your inside the number?
So as usual, I also have two. My numbers are 298 and .075. So since the advent of the designated hitter in 1973, there have been 298 individual seasons in which a batter qualified for the batting title while playing at least 51% of the games as a DH, designated hitter. That includes Miguel Cabrera this year, whose .075 isolated power is the lowest of all those 298 seasons ever. The next lowest is Ted Simmons at .078 in 1984. There have only been 9 such seasons where a hitter posted a W or an ISO under 100.
Wow.
I feel like I do this every week, but isolated power is, of course, batting average minus or slugging percentage minus batting average, basically taking singles out to see who's hitting for power. Now, in Miggy's defense, he's still hitting close to 300, and his OPS plus is 107. So it's far from the worst season ever by a DH. That actually was that Simmons year. But it's just kind of confounding how a guy that size with that hitting ability just can't hit for any power at all anymore. It's really bizarre to me. But there it is. He may have the least power of any DH ever this year.
Do you? I mean, I shouldn't put you on the spot with a number. Do you know what his loft angles are?
I don't, but I can check right now. I know that he had throughout most of his career, at least in the StatCast era, was around 12 degrees. But I thought like in 2019 it was down to like 3. And I would bet he's below 5 now. I'm checking as we speak. Let's see. And like it in one hand, it's like you give the guy credit because he's still learning how to produce despite not having any power, but it's weird. So yeah, his launch angle in 2018, it went from 12 every year down to 7.3 for some reason. But his exit velocity was still in the mid 90s. But this year it went from 10 last year to 5.7 this year. Yeah. And average exit velocity is 90. So yeah, he's got no power behind his swing anymore, but he still figures out how to poke him and hit him where they ain't, which is impressive in its own right, but it's just kind of a bummer that he's not hitting for any power.
Yeah. And it's even weirder because that actually is the opposite of my inside number. So I have 2 numbers as well. My number is 293 and 443. The 293 is the weighted WRC plus of Johan Alvarez in the month of June. He is having, in terms of, you're looking at in terms of months of, I'm kind of speechless with this because here's a guy who has a kind of slugger profile. And the other number, by the way, is his ISO, 443. 443. And that, you think to yourself, well, what about Aaron Judge? It's 377. Brian Buxton, by the way, has the highest ISO in the month of June right now with 482. And that's just Buxton being Buxton. But the reason why I want to mention Alvarez, first and foremost, he got that contract extension that we really didn't mention last week. And Houston the other part of that equation is he walks at 11%. He strikes out only at 9% this month so far. And so that's just like he's getting it done. And that's just, I don't know. It just stands out to me for a guy that I don't think Alvarez gets enough due because you have what's going on in the AL East right now. But with Aaron Judge at 27 home runs already. Yeah. Across the league and us being in the AL Central, we're in the AL Central, we're in the Midwest, we get the Rust Belt, blah, blah, blah. And then you got the East Coast with Boston, New York. And then on the West Coast, it's the Dodgers and everybody else. So Houston's kind of the smack dab in the middle. Of course, you still have the cheaters thing going on. But those are really good numbers for Alvarez. And I think that Houston was smart enough to lock him down. So those are my 2 inside numbers for this week.
Yeah, who was it that I think it was Jed who pointed out that they got him for like 2 months of Josh Fields.
Yep.
The reliever. That's just Jed. It's remarkable scouting.
It's amazing what good scouting can do. It's great. It's crazy. Well, you get a little return on your investment. It's crazy. All right, now it is time for the good, bad, and the ugly. I don't know why I didn't use the vocal one this week, but
That's good.
Yeah,
Good
thanks.
stuff.
So, it is time for the good, the bad, the ugly this week. And Chris, what is the good, the bad, and the ugly for you?
So every now and then I do a kind of an obvious one, but still, sometimes you just have to do it. So my good is Shohei Ohtani. Really going off the board here, but sometimes we just need to kind of step back and appreciate this dude, right? Like his offensive numbers are down a bit this year. He's only a 130 WRC plus as compared to 150 last year. Would still be the best hitter on the Tigers by far, but he's arguably pitching better this year than he did last year. And so on Tuesday, he goes 3 for 4 with 2 home runs and 8 RBIs. That's the 125th game like that in MLB history. And so the next night, he's pitching, but he also goes 1 for 3 with 2 walks, and he throws 8 shutout innings with 2 hits, 1 walk, and 13 strikeouts, which is just the 86th time in MLB history that has been done. So it's like, every day this dude is doing something insane, and to be able to do both of those things at this level is just remarkable. And boy, it'd be nice if the Angels could do something with him and Trout, but So I don't know. It's fun watching him. My bad. I always like to enjoy bringing the White Sox into this is Lucas Giolito. So we've talked about him before over the years as being a great example of a guy who struggled and then figured out a new way to reinvent himself and became really good. He's basically one of the top 10 pitchers in the American League the last 3 years. But this year it's kind of all falling apart for him. He currently owns a 5.40 ERA, and he's been particularly bad the last month. 9 home runs and 15 walks in his last 31 innings, and which has been good for a 7.96 ERA over his last 5-6 starts, worst in baseball. And I have no idea what's going on. You kind of hope, for his sake, that it comes back. But his fastball spin is way down, and opposing batters are hitting 280 against all 4 of his pitches, at least 280 and better. So that's not really a way to go through life as a pitcher. That's been kind of bad for him. And my ugly is your Florida Complex League Tigers.
Ooh, what? Oh,
yeah,
no.
In the grand scheme of things, the win-loss record of a complex league baseball team doesn't matter at all. I mean, we're talking about the youngest of the young players in pro ball. What they are there for is to learn how to play pro ball, and it doesn't really matter. But still, you probably would hope to be better than 2-11 to start the season. I think they were 1-10. It's not quite as bad as it seems. They've scored 73 runs, which is like right in the middle of the FCL, but they've also given up 108 runs in 105 innings, which is not ideal. More than a run an inning, and it includes a league worst 16 home runs. So I don't know. Again, the stats don't matter, but there's also not a ton of very interesting talent down there in the complex league. We've got Abel Bastidas, who was kind of a big name international guy last year. Same with Rainer Castillo, the pitcher. They've got Clayton Campbell, the Kiwi. Adenso Reyes is down there. Iverson Leonardo, my guy, he's down there. But yeah, I don't think they have any real top 30 prospects down there. So going back to that Avila thing and finding talent in the international market is I don't know if there's a ton to be excited about. Maybe some guys will pop up. 2-11. 2-11.
Yeah. Clayton Campbell, though, is doing good, though, right? He's off to a decent start.
He's okay. I think he's probably hitting 230. I haven't even. Let me go ahead and look. I'll let you know.
Dead. This is the garbage you give me.
All right. Well, while Chris looks that up, Yooper, what is your good and bad ugly this week?
All right. Under good, part of the Atlanta Braves' recent hot stretch, including that big win streak they had, was they called up their 3rd-round draft pick from 2019, Michael Harris II. The guy has been a revelation for them. He's hitting 330, slugging 538, WRC plus of 146 so far. Really playing an excellent outfield for them as well. Just a spark plug out of the 9-hole. Really what they needed with, Ozzie Albies, not producing and then going out for 2 months. And then really Ronald Acuna Jr. is actually in and out of the lineup like crazy. He hasn't been uber productive this year, to be honest. So Michael Harris II, kind of an unsung guy in the National League for the Braves. Now, some of this, there's some, I always call it rookiness to it. He's got a 4.13 BABIP, probably not going to hold up. He's walking 3.3% of the time, which is a little troubling. So he's having some great results, but sometimes you get a month or so out of a guy. That's enough to really propel your team while some of your stars kind of get cranked up. So it's kind of important. He's been pretty impressive. So Michael Harris is one to watch. My bad, I don't know if you guys saw it this afternoon. Frankie Montas had a no-hitter. He was 4 outs from a no-hitter. Kind of gave up a semi-bloop, kind of humpback liner for an opposite field hit. Left the game with a 1-0 lead. They go to the bullpen in Oakland with a 1-0 lead. They didn't give up a hit and they lost. They had 4 walks and 2 wild pitches. 2 runs later, the Mariners are ahead. So that was all some guy named Zach Jackson, who I'll be honest, I never heard of, and AJ Puck, who
well, that's embarrassing.
has been a very let's just say hit or miss guy, the Iowa native. So he didn't exactly grab a hold of the closer role today by not being able to be anywhere near the strike zone. Ugly. Going to bring it local one more time. 2 weeks ago, here in Iowa, travel ball tournament, 25 parents at least ejected from games on the weekend. Now it was a 200 and I believe it was 275 teams, so it was a big tournament. But 25 parents ejected by umpires, lots of them teenage umpires who people were on their case pretty hard. Went to roughly a 0 tolerance policy this weekend, got it down to 3 people ejected, which is pretty good. But the best part is I got one of them.
Yeah. You know what? Wait, I got a special piece of audio for you.
All right.
You did it. You crazy son of a bitch, you did.
That's Jeff. You definitely deserve Jeff Goldblum worthiness right there. Yes.
My partner had tossed out a coach for arguing balls and strikes for like the 3rd time. They're supposed to do it. That's supposed to be really 0 tolerance, but nobody is 0 tolerance on it. But he finally had enough and he threw him out. So it's the partner's job then to get the guy off the field. You let the guy who did the ejection walk away, and the other guy comes in and gets him off the field. So I'm getting him off the field, and some grandparent, he starts cussing me out, and I told him, hey, you can go with him. So
beat it, old man. Get out of here.
Much. Yeah, so good job in Iowa. They cut the numbers down, but I had to chip one in. Just basically the guy earned it.
Yeah. Oh man. All right. So my good, and it's good and bad. So it mixed together because it's a good thing and a bad thing all rolled in one player. And that would be the good is Manuel Sequeira, who's had a good month of June in terms of power. He's hit 5 home runs in the month of June so far. And he's increased his batting average to just over 233. He's walked a little bit more and what have you. But the bad, of course, is that in 236 or 248 plate appearances, he has struck out 55 times, has walked 10 times, and batted is batted 220. So he's also been caught stealing 4 times. So that's also not good. Now for the season, Mark Gurash in our DM said that he's not interested in a hitter unless they're walking over 4%. He's just over 4% now, but still, if you're looking for silver linings for Lakeland, there is a lot more than just him going on. There's Roberto Campos, there's Isaac Pacheco, there is the Carlos Mendoza, who got called up to West Michigan, who is also part of my good because Mendoza has been tearing it up for the Whitecaps, and I'm doing a little write-up on him right now along with Winseel Perez. So that part is pretty good. I mean, for Mendoza can play all over the infield. He's 5'7". His father was a former major league player who played for the Rockies at one point. Chris and I did some translation the other day. It was funny. But excuse me.
Nickname was it Gelatina and
Gelatina, yeah.
Zapatera or something like that. Basically, yeah, the shaker. Apparently, he was very. He did a lot of gyrations in the batter's box.
Yeah, he was the Elvis. He was the Elvis of Venezuelan. Wait, Mendoza's Cuban, isn't he?
No, he's Venezuelan.
He's Venezuelan. Okay. I thought for some reason I was thinking of. I got him and Campos confused for a moment. And my ugly this week, and sorry, Yooper, but this was bad, and it kind of fits into the motif. Is Doug Eddings, who missed 30 calls during the White Sox Blue Jays game.
I have a theory.
Okay,
go ahead.
So it's the same ump, by the way, the same ump who was part of the 2005 White Sox Angels. The moment that AJ Padinsky, got hit, same ump. I'm not gonna go. You know me, guys. I don't do the conspiracy stuff. I joke about it. I laugh about it. But some of those calls last night were atrocious. I mean, I'm gonna pull it up right now. If you're watching it on YouTube, and look, I know you're a resident ump, but come on. I mean, we're gonna. Of course, now I go to share the screen now. Now it doesn't work. When I really wanted to do, it doesn't. Of course. That's why, because I have it on that. Okay, so
you're gonna show Eddings.
We're gonna show Eddings' call right here. If you're watching us on YouTube, watch this call.
And strike 3 called, and again, it's off the out.
He homered his last time.
How is that a strike?
What
planet?
He said so. Here's my theory on this one. If you go to that umpscorecard.com, which you can hear people have different opinions how accurate they are.
Right.
A lot of his misses that were outside of the zone were clustered in 2 spots. Okay, there was up and away, and there was low, and there was high to the first base side out of the box, and there was low to the third base side out of the box. It doesn't differentiate between left and right hand batters. My theory, and it's all it is, once he established that early in the game, maybe he missed a couple. He might even have known he missed a couple. But once you establish that as the zone, that kind of becomes the zone. Because if you're not going to call it there again the next time, now people got a real big gripe. So maybe you try to slowly move it back in. But I just wonder in his mind, said, well, that's where my zone is tonight. And yeah, I agree. I mean, a couple of those pitches were bad. I mean, what are you going to do? I can't argue it. But I just wonder if that's where some of the thinking came in, because he was very consistent via those charts in those 2 areas. So I don't know. And plus, it's a long season. Somebody's got to have the worst game. Now he does.
And that's a very well explained conclusion. That's really well said, and that's probably the case. But again, it's one of those things where it's one thing. Ben Verlander sometimes does what kind of the popular thing. Ooh, just jump on things and say whatever else is saying and all that because he has a platform to do so. But when White Sox fans are calling it out, I mean, it's legitimate griping. And for once, I just think that there's been a point this season where the ump show and what have you, there's been more of that. It seems like maybe it's just me, but it seems there's been more of that this year than previously. So, but yeah, that was,
well,
and also what they did
this week where Grossman, right? Grossman had one that people were pretty up in arms about. Wasn't it him?
Yeah.
I got to be honest. That pitch was maybe an inch inside, maybe 3/4 of an inch. I think that's another one where the frustration of the teams losing compounds everything a little bit. That pitch, I mean, yeah, it might have been inside, but we're talking an inch off the plate. I mean, that happens. I mean, the best umpires have missed that once in a while.
Yeah, and it happens. But I was just the one thing I was going to say about the way it was the now I lost my train of thought. The fact that they tossed the hitting coach before the game. I mean, come on. Enough. Like, enough. What are you doing? What are we doing here? Come on. And did he call him a name, or he just literally presented an interesting exchange? Go ahead, Chris. Do you know more about this?
Well, they said that hitting coach doesn't normally handle lineup cards, so they sent him out there exclusively to yell at the ump. And I'm sure he told the ump something along the lines of, that was a complete horseshit zone yesterday. And I'm sure that that's probably what got him rung up. I don't think he didn't seem shocked or terribly upset about it. I think he went out there and got exactly what he wanted, which is to tell the guy that he sucks.
Yeah, and basically, here's how kind of, and even it filters down to the amateur level. He more than likely said, "You suck." If he would have said, "Those calls sucked," you're okay. But it's you suck, you're blind, now you're out. Where that's a bad call. If you keep it to the calls, you usually don't get run. So he must have personalized it somehow.
Yeah, it's funny. I wonder if he put it on the score, like on the lineup card. He's like, you put at top, and like it was like you, and then he looks down, suck or something like that, or some sort of coded message or something like I see you, or like, you know what I mean, like some sort of abbreviation or anything. But no, Eddings is up there too. He doesn't get talked about as much as Angel Hernandez, but he is a terrible ump. So, but either way, the ump show is, I think, the good way to end the Good, the Bad, the Ugly for this week. And by the way, if you are listening and you're a regular listener to the podcast, and if you have a good and bad, the ugly, or inside number you want to give us, please let us know. WoodwardTigers@gmail.com, or if you follow us on Twitter at Woodward Tigers, or if you follow any one of us, our individual Twitter accounts, or for that matter, on the Tiger Minor League Report Facebook. If you have something that you want to provide for the show, by all means, we love to hear we get some really intelligent fans out there. And we always appreciate the feedback and the constant exchange. And so with some of the questions we got this week, I know there's a couple of them we answered about Avila, but we'll get to that in a second. But either way, if there's a number that you want us to discuss that you have, like something that stood out to you, just let us know, and we'll definitely bring it up on the show. So for questions this week, Chris, I'll start with our usual. We have Mark on the DM, and I put this in our private chat, and we'll start with those two. Hey, Rogelio, just a couple questions for you for tonight. One, at this point, is Avila's job guaranteed through the end of the season? Why keep him for the draft trade deadline if the plan is to fire him this offseason? The second question, Joe Jimenez has a career-high 33% strikeout rate while dropping his walk rate by 10% compared to last year. What mechanical tweaks has he has made to give this improved command? And, of course, Mark always brings some good questions there. So, Chris, you want to take a first crack at this?
So with Avila hanging around, and we mentioned that, I don't know, like half an hour ago or so, something like that, that at this point just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to make a huge sweeping change right before the draft. They put in basically a whole year of scouting and making connections with these prospects and stuff like that. So not whether or not that matters for Avila, I don't know that it does. You could get rid of Avila and keep everybody else, but it almost feels like if they want to make a move, that they're going to make a big move and bring in like a new GM who brings in all his lieutenants too, or her lieutenants, as it were. So, I mean, the trade deadline is a little bit more interesting to me. Like, do you really want Avila making more trades? Probably not. Although the one trade he made last year looks good. So, I don't know. I wouldn't say that his job is guaranteed through the end of the season. It wouldn't shock me if we get that sort of promotion demotion around August, the way that happened with Littlefield and Chad last year.
Before you have anything to add before I was going to finish up with that?
No, I think Chris pretty much covered where I am too. I do question a little bit with all the new hirings and with the ascendancy of AJ Hinch. How much is Avila calling the shots now? Do we know? That's there's just so many things we don't know, and it's so hazy. You know, they got to. That's if nothing else, they got to clear this part of it out. It shouldn't be hazy. We should know who's making the final call. You know, where does the buck stop? Whose direction are we following?
I completely agree with you on that, Yooper, and I think there's a part of me that thinks that he's more of a figurehead because I look at that. Like for example, look at that Reese Olson trade. Who used to be in the Brewers front office? Think about that for a moment. Kenny Olson. Is it Kenny Olson? Is that Kenny Graham? Sorry, Kenny Graham. He used to be part of the Brewers. You don't think he had tabs on ex-players? You don't think that was a suggestion by him? I mean, to be fair, I think the Whitecaps faced him once earlier in that year, last year, and Olsen didn't look that good. I mean, he looked okay, but then there's something that, was it suggested by Kenny Graham? I'm not sure, but I feel like there's somebody else, or there could be multiple people making decisions right now that we're not aware of. And then Avila's just saying, okay, I'll sign off on it. We don't know. It's irresponsible speculation on our part, but I don't know what exactly. I can see the August thing. I think, Chris, I think you're totally right about that. And are you right about all your allergies or something, man? You've been.
No, sorry. I was looking at something and my contacts dried up on me.
Okay. Gotcha.
The dog showed up. A little bit.
But yeah, that's where I kind of look at that as he might not be, again, calling all the shots at the moment. And there's could be to that and to what you're saying, Yooper. As far as Jimenez goes, I think the biggest thing that I can say that I noticed is he's given up his changeup. Like he's just, in terms of last year, his changeup, he was throwing at around 13% clip. This year, he's throwing it once to right-handers. And that's it. He's only thrown one changeup to right-handers the entire time. And I think, and that was a pitch that he was going to at least around anywhere. He was using it quite a bit, 9%. It's been dropping, but this year it's basically non-existent. And in terms of what's different with his fastball, and it's the chase rate. I mean, another thing that stands out about Jimenez is his chase rate's in a 77 percentile. Last year, it was at 13. That is a huge and jump. And I mean, I think it was Monday or Tuesday when he pitched. It was efficient. First pitch strikes, wasted no time. His innings have been much more quicker. And basically, again, when Mark pointed out about the strikeouts, it stands out. But I think abandoning his changeup and going 62% fastball, 36 slider. And there's nothing they could do about it. And I think also I give credit to Hinch on where he's placing him. I don't think him being a closer, maybe that wasn't for his role, but coming into a situation where he has to just get, I don't know. It could be some people are either a closer or you're not. And this may be a role for Jimenez, but that's my answer to that.
You kind of touched. I think he looks to me like he's working faster.
Yeah.
Now, is he pitching better because he's working faster, or is he just working faster because he's more confident because he's pitching better? I don't know, but it's been kind of noticeable to me that some of his old outings used to be so laborious. I mean, you're waiting with dread for him to pitch because you knew he was going to get torched. Don't feel that way now.
There is one thing I forgot to mention, and Dana Dickerson mentioned this on the podcast. It's something that I noticed. Remember how he used to kind of, when it comes to the set, he kind of like did that little extra beat thing with his glove, kind of beat his glove. He doesn't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So that also could be something too, where he's maybe perhaps not opening up as much when he's pitching. That is something that Dickerson mentioned on the broadcast a few weeks ago, and it was kind of like almost like I guess he was like holding it for extra beat or I'm describing it terribly, but you know what I'm talking about when you did this. I'll look it up here while you guys talk about that. But
yeah, but I mean, Spencer Turnbull started doing that too at the beginning of last year. He would kind of he would like another glove tap to kind of keep himself under control. The main thing that I see, and this is not something that I've noticed in person, but when you look at the data, his extension off the mound this year is about a half a foot more than last year. So that was one of his big things when he came up when he first came up. That was his big thing. He was an extension monster. Basically, he was 7 feet of extension. Basically, what I mean is that is how far in front of the mound he's releasing the pitch, and that the farther you release it, the more the harder your fastball appears to hitters.
Yep.
And so his fastball this year is a mile an hour faster. He's also releasing it about 6 inches closer to the plate. So I think that if I had to guess, I'd say they've done a much better job of him driving off the mound and getting downhill toward the plate. And I think that's probably played a large role in his success this year, because the last time he was consistently releasing the ball this far in front of the plate was 2018, when I believe that was his best year.
Interesting. Didn't know that.
Yeah, and I'm pulling up his stuff from last year, comparatively speak to what we've been seeing. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can find the one with the glove tap on it. But it was like an extra glove tap. No, I can't find it. It's
glove tap.
The film MLB film room is fantastic, but they cut it at very, very specific points, so you don't get the entire windup. You get it right when they about the pitch versus, but still, it's a significant difference. And Chris, you make a really good point about the extension. That's something that if you can get that kind of extension to where it allows that pitch to pop out the last possible second, and you need any advantage you can get. And he already has a fastball. It's already 96. So a batter's going to have no chance against it with that kind of an extension, because by then, you have to think about how you're timing your swing already. And to have that kind of ability to do that and that's awesome. So, ugh.
Yeah, well, and he's always been a high spin. Like, his metrics have always been great. High spin fastball, good velocity. So that's only going to play up if you can increase it, the actual velocity and the effective velocity a little bit more. So I think that's probably helped him. Now, how they did that, I don't know. But like I said, I suspect that they're just having him drive off the mound better. And he's always had those big tree trunk thighs. So, like, it's one of the things that we like about this current pitching coaching staff, right? Is that they figured out ways to maximize just about everybody on that pitching staff. So, yeah, I mean, he's a guy, and we'll get into this in some of the other questions. He's a guy that I think has turned into a pretty decent trade chip now.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And the Tigers have a couple of really, really good relievers right now that even right now, if they decided to, let's say, maybe call up somebody from the minors, they probably could do that and maybe get away with it for a minute for the rest of the year, since Tigers are kind of beyond a contention. For example, maybe throw Olsen out of put him in short relief or something like that. And if they wanted to, I don't know what they're gonna. If they want to keep him a starter, that's fine too. Or maybe put Garrett Hill as a reliever too. And by the way, random fact before I forget, someone's pointed out Jarrell Cotton on Twitter because he's now a reliever. Holy Nikes, man! He is. Oh, look up his numbers, guys. When you get a chance, it's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
I saw he gave up a home run. I think it was last night when the Guardians scored 4 runs. I think in the top of the 9th to come back. But
I can't ignore this here. This is in YouTube. R1 versus J4. That luxury tax screwed MLB players, in which Chris Illich and 4 other owners were against. Rumor has it that Joe Madden, an owner, which was one of 4, had a few words. Players trying ownership. Man got fired.
Oh, yeah. Artie Moreno. Yeah. He was one of the 4. It was Artie Moreno, Illich. Wasn't it the Arizona?
Yeah, the Diamondbacks owner.
I forgot the other one.
Yeah.
We never got, Chris Illich was actually asked about that and gave a non-answer. So, I don't know. That wasn't a great look.
All right, so the next question, I got all the questions lined up. So, Chris, if you want me to read them, I can, and then you guys can go ahead and.
It depends. Yeah, which one were you going to start with?
I was going to start with the Steve Butts one.
All right.
His question, Steve Butts at SteveB5477 on Twitter. My question is more of court intrigue. The Tigers rushed to promote Green because they knew that the Ken Rosenthal article was forthcoming. Was it a distraction? Since the article says that there's consensus belief among the rival GMs that Avila isn't creative enough. Yooper, you take first crack on that.
Well, is he creative enough? I think I think we've seen enough proof. Probably not. I think, it's interesting when Riley Green first came back from the injury, our friend Lynn Henning put out there that he might be in the minors for up to 5 weeks getting ready. I mean, he posted that. And again, our speculation always is Lynn is hearing these things, not making things up from somebody. So, but Green did not. He was only down for a couple weeks, and all of a sudden he's in the lineup. I tend to think that basically they knew they needed a spark. Riley Green was showing a pulse at Toledo, and I don't know if the upcoming article had much to do with it. I wouldn't think it did.
Chris?
No, I don't think. I think Riley Green was ready for the majors in April. I think he was ready for the majors last August. I think Riley Green is just that kind of. He has the right mix of skills in personality and demeanor that he was ready. I don't think they rushed him at all. If anything, they held him back a couple extra days just to make sure that he cleared the Super 2 threshold. And they weren't going to do that in the first place. But once he got hurt and he missed, 2 months anyway, it made sense. Like, all right, just hold him for another week. And he wasn't setting Toledo on fire, but this is a dude, like we said, and you've seen it from when he played the first 4 or 5 games. He's a guy, he's got a great idea of the strike zone. He seems unflappable at the plate. He made an error in the outfield. Then he came back and made a bunch of fine plays in the outfield. He just seems like a guy who's having fun and comfortable in his own skin. And I don't think they rushed him at all. On the other hand, I do think they rushed Spencer Torkelson. And I think they gave him the job, basically. It was – he technically had to earn it. But who else was going to be first base? Were they going to play Jonathan Scope at first base again and have Paredes at second? I don't think that was in the cards. I think they basically, as part of this sort of like, hey, the rebuild is over. We made these signings. Spencer Torkelson's our number 1 overall pick. He's moving fast. He's put up these numbers. He's here. I think they put him in a situation where he isn't able to succeed right now, and I think a lot of that was based on not necessarily who he is as a player, but where they are as a team and where they've been over the last 4 or 5 years. And it then goes back to that Ken Rosenthal article, which the final line in that was, which was real money, which was them talking about how, the Tigers aren't good at evaluating their own players or other players. And the issues Spencer Torkelson is having this year, he was having them last year, and we saw that. And we're not baseball scouts. We're not. Nobody pays me to talk about baseball. I guess technically they do, but it's not my career. And I could see that. Hey, Spencer Torkelson is not making enough contact on pitches that he should be destroying. That's the same issue this year. He's missing pitches right down the middle that aren't even they're like 90 to 95. And so either they didn't see that or they were just kind of ignoring it and hoping it would go away. But so I think they pushed Torkelson, and I think what we're seeing this year is the result of a guy who's basically flailing to try to stay afloat at the major league level when he's not ready for it. Now, I don't know if more time in AAA would have done him a ton of good. I think what he needs is an adjustment to his swing, adjustment to I think our buddy Brandon Day thinks he needs to lower his hands a little bit. I don't know. I'm not good enough swing doctor to know exactly what he needs to do, but I think there's something that he needs to do to trigger that swing a little bit earlier. But I know that wasn't really the question. That's just me kind of going off on my own there.
It's all right.
No, and look, as far as options are concerned and all that, the Tigers don't really have any. I mean, Quincy DePorte is in Double-A. And that's it. That is it. And if they wanted that, what they could have done, though, here's what they could have done. Devil's advocate here. You could have put Paredes at second to start the season because he did play second. Put Scope at first and have Torkelson stay in Toledo. They could have done that.
Yeah, That's right. I mentioned
they
that,
still
but
made the Meadows trade.
yeah, I don't. They wouldn't have. They wouldn't have at that point. It would have probably been. It would have probably been Willie Castro at second or Harold Castro at second.
Yeah.
And no, they could have done it, but I think they kind of boxed themselves in. And Torkelson put up numbers in the minors last year that were, were good enough to say like, hey, this guy deserves a shot. But that's one of those things where like your organization, you have to not worry about that stuff. You have to know for sure. You have to evaluate your own players and know like, hey, this guy looks like he might be ready, but he's not. We see these things that the big league pitchers are going to exploit. And the Tigers either, like I said, they either ignored that or they didn't see it. And neither of those are great options. So, in any event, no, Riley Green, he's fine. He'll be fine. He'll struggle this year because big league pitching is very good, but he's going to be fine. And they called him up when he was ready because he's been ready for a while.
Yeah, and flat out. There's I understand what Steve. I like Steve's question, the way he phrased it, because the Tigers have been known to do that. I think that's where he was coming from with that. Mm-hmm. So the next question comes from. I'm gonna go with. I'll stick with the Steves. Steve Cook, who is at Slap Happy Cookie, one of my favorite followers on Twitter, always tweeting some good stuff. If Soto is flipped, and he's put in quotations, he should. What would be a return? Of course, nobody has the faith in how the pull a proper trade. To me, if they for Soto, he has what? He's not arbitration eligible till next year too, right?
Yep. They've got 3+ years of control for Soto left.
I think personally he's worth a scratch off or lottery ticket. Sorry, I always get when you say lottery ticket. I know you've used that term quite a bit, Chris, for prospect wise. But I think somebody that is at the AA, AAA level that deserves a shot. Like I'm not saying like a blue chip prospect, maybe somebody in the middle of the road, and a lottery ticket.
I like to put names just to throw a name on top of it. For instance, I look at something like Toronto. Right, they have their shortstop of the future. Then they got 2 other shortstops down below. Orelvis Martinez is probably the better prospect right now over at Jordan Groshans. But I think Groshans is a guy who could probably play. The power just hasn't come. But I was thinking a shortstop on that level for Soto. And as Raj said, another piece thrown in. Because Soto has so much control left, they need to maximize the return on that one. And
look, and there's Michael Meyer in YouTube saying, too low. The reason why I put too low is because I don't think the Tigers would put together some. The Tigers are not going to me, haven't stolen anybody. I mean, they stole Paredes. Okay, you can say that. You can say, okay, that's considered a victory. But if it's the way the front office is now, the return is going to be something that is, to me, at least in my opinion, meddling. Now, it depends on who makes the trade. I like that idea, Yooper, we were talking about with Toronto, Martinez or Groshans, and they're both. I mean, and Martinez is the future values at 50 compared to 45, but still, not. I mean, again, to me, it doesn't matter. Toronto is got a plethora of good pitching, so. Again, I don't know. There's at any rate. Chris, did you want to chime in on this before?
Trevor Rosenthal. No, sorry. No, I had trouble saying Rosenthal earlier, so you're fine, Raj. I think people might be overrating Gregory Soto's trade value. I don't think. I think there are certain clubs out there that feel like they could probably get him and fix him, as it were, make him from a 4 to 5 walk guy down to like a 2 to 3 walk guy. It's a golden arm, right? It's a lefty who throws 98 basically every fastball. He's hardly throwing his slider at all this year. It's like 80% fastballs, and his walk rate is 4.5 per 9. His FIP has never been below like 3.5. I don't think he's a closer per se for any real contender. I don't think you trust a guy like that to be a setup man. So unless a team out there thinks that they can fix him and turn him into the closer, he's got the arm of a closer, but he hasn't performed like that. He's a closer for the Tigers just because, right? Like we've talked about it before. Like Hinch is a guy who's not going to put pitchers. He doesn't put roles on guys, but he's put the closer role on Gregory Soto. We haven't seen Soto in any other position, I don't think. He used to do it with Cisnero. He does it with Lang. He does it with Fulmer. Doesn't do it with Soto. It's almost like, hey, we're living and dying with Soto, and I don't think a contender is going to take a guy like that. So, I don't know. A team like the Yankees or somebody like that might feel like they could fix him. They've done it with, who is it? Clay, what's his name? They turned him into like this elite reliever. But yeah, I would not expect anything particularly special in return, even with that 3+ years of control. I think you're talking about maybe 2 kind of low minors lottery tickets, like you said, Raj, like guys who have some promise and some tools, but are 3-4 years. I don't have any particular names for you, but that's what I would expect to be the return.
Yeah. Again, that's just one of those things where I just look at, as far as Soto drama, you never know what you're going to get. I don't know. I think Soto, when he's on. I think he is streaky, just like it seems like every Tiger reliever in the last decade or so. But
the good news is that in Chris's scenario, then you don't have to move him. I mean, you can keep him around, let Chris better work with him, and maybe he becomes X amount of better for the next trade deadline.
Trade him to Seattle for Jared Kalanick.
Well, you know what? I was trying to think because Henning mentioned trading Soto too. Henning basically said, I don't know if we talked about the Henning Skubal thing today, but we definitely did earlier today. But Henning talked about trading Soto, and like the most comparable pitcher I could come up with was Jose Alvarado. Although he had, from the Rays to the Phillies, although he had kind of gone completely off the rails for a couple seasons, like his walk rate was up in like 8 for 9.
Yeah.
It's not quite the same, but it's a lefty. He throws really hard. And he was just kind of another piece of a larger deal. And I could see Soto being that too. Like if the Tigers were to trade Fulmer, or if they were to trade Skubal, that Soto was also involved in that as a throw-in. Not necessarily a throw-in, but like a secondary piece in a larger deal. I don't think you're going to get a ton from him or for him, at least not what Tigers fans want. You might be able to get another Reese Olson. Reese Olson's a fun prospect. I don't think Tigers fans want another Reese Olson. They want some hitters. And I don't think you're going to get that for Gregory Soto.
So speaking of trades, because this is part of the next question. So I actually have a kind of a trade in my head that I'm worked out a little bit. But the next question comes from Ed Miller at Ed Miller 19. He said, I'm putting you guys in charge. Who's on the trading block and who are your targets? Good luck.
Good luck.
So good luck. Yooper, do you have a trade or anything that you have? Joke, Nathan. That's sorry, was a constructive joke.
Well, since I'm in charge, after we draft
Trauma Grande.
After we draft Kumar Rocker, we will be
Oh, hey, wait, hold on.
Well, that's embarrassing.
Then we're going to be looking to move Tarik Skubal because Lynn Henning told me that.
All right, okay. You redeemed yourself there. That was good.
I really do believe, though, that I go back to Tampa with Xavier Edwards down in the minors. Really good-looking middle infielder. I don't know where they're going to play him with the other parts that they have. I got to believe they want to move him for something. And then the Toronto shortstops. I think those are kind of the organizations I'd be poking around. The Mets have a couple guys, a guy named Ramirez that I follow a little bit. I like him. And obviously the Dodgers always seem to have 18 guys who look pretty good. So those are the teams I would target to see if I have any trade capital that interests them. And, Henning got beat up today really bad. I get it. I don't think it's a crazy idea to trade Tarik Skubal. You can't say we don't have that. I'm saying we because Ed Miller put me in charge of the team. But
oh, that's fair. That's fair.
There are no untouchables. I hate that word untouchable. You telling me We would do Vlad Guerrero for Tarik Skubal, wouldn't we? We're not. He's not untouchable.
Do you hate that? Do you hate the movie The Untouchables too?
Oh, I love that. It's got Costner. It's got Costner, and then you slap on Sean Connery on top of it. I mean, that's a party right there.
Just like an Italian.
Oh. So I would definitely explore what's out there for Tarik Skubal if he comes back and pitches well. Gets over this little hump, this little blip he's having. Henning's not crazy. To get value, you got to give value. You're not going to rip off too many teams.
Yeah.
You're just not. If you think, we're going to keep making these little piddly trades and we're going to score big on one of them, or we're going to find the next JD Martinez on the market next year, okay, great. But exactly, hope isn't a strategy. Somebody famous just said that recently, and I kind of agree with it. You got to make things happen. They have a dude in Skubal who probably is marketable. What can you get? Can you get 3 pieces for him that you really believe will be in your lineup? If you can, maybe you make that deal. I'm not saying you have to, but I don't always stick up for Lynn Henning, but I'll stick up for him here. It's not the craziest idea.
Well, you're on an island on yourself on that one.
I know.
For this case. That's fine. I mean, I love Lynn Henning, and some of the comments were kind of really, and they really went after him, especially they did not stop. Chris, what about you? Do you have a trade in mind?
Well, yeah, I mean, I also am not 100% opposed to a Skubal trade, but if I'm the GM, Skubal and Riley Green are my 2 untouchables, and everybody else is available, including Spencer Torkelson. I'm looking mostly to deal basically all the relievers, Fulmer, Soto, Jimenez, Vest, if anybody wants him, Alex Lang, if the price is right. I'm all about moving relievers. If you're not competing, just trade every reliever you can, because every team wants relievers. They'll pay more than they're worth, and you don't need them because you suck. What do you need relievers for? So that's my general philosophy in both real baseball and fantasy baseball. I would look, again, it doesn't matter what position it is. The Tigers need impact bats. I would look to the Cardinals. Maybe, they've got Gorman, who's up performing. They also have Jordan Walker down in the minors, Mason Wynn down in the minors. You've got some interesting infielders. They seem pretty set at infield for the moment. I don't know if you're going to get those guys for relievers, but, if those guys are involved in a Skubal deal, maybe. But, any impact bats you can find anywhere. San Diego, are they considering moving CJ Abrams at all with Cronenworth and Tatis? Maybe not. They're I don't know. It's just hard because you feel like all teams feel like they can probably, other than the Angels, they can create pitchers out of nothing now. And even the Angels, took a 11th round pick and brought him up to the majors. He didn't do great, but
having 1 year worth of drafting every single pitcher.
Yeah, it's almost like you almost need to find the perfect scenario, that great like Cubs World Series winning scenario where they're willing to trade anybody they can and don't care about the long-term ramifications because they're so hungry for the World Series that they'll trade you potential above average all-star position players. But I don't see that happening for any of the pieces the Tigers have anymore, unfortunately, other than Skubal and Riley Green.
So here's what I'm thinking for my trade. Okay, Michael Fulmer. I think again everybody's off, but if I'm going right now as a trade, you know who I'm calling? I'm calling the New York Mets. Here's what I'm calling for the New York Mets for. So I'm calling for Kahil Lee, who they got from Kansas City, left-handed outfielder, who was just called up, had a cup of coffee recently, and the reason why I say that is because he's 23 and he may not have anywhere to go. Or another guy who plays, his defense is not good. He plays third base, is Mark Vientos. He's a prospect that really may not have a place to go either. He's got power potential. He was drafted in the second round from 2017. He's been around for a while. and you trade Fulmer for one of those or potentially two of them, and see what you go with. Because if Candelario, and the reason why I mention this is because Candelario is facing arbitration. If Tigers don't want to go with our Candelario or whatever they want to do with him, and they flip Candelario, let's say they flip him at the trade deadline. If Candelario could be used anywhere, but let's say they do that, Fulmer to the Mets solidifies a bullpen in a highly competitive division right now. The Braves have won 12 in a row. We're winning 12 in a row. The Marlins are getting their act together, and the Nationals are a joke. And Philly's gotten their act together too since they fired Joe Girardi. So if you're going to reinforce your bullpen, and you have a couple players like that, that's my realistic suggestion. Does it sound real? Does it sound like something the Tigers would do? Probably not. No way. But Ed brought a good question. I wanted to have some names to it, and that's my suggestion. Those are two players that New York may not have room for. And Fulmer was a Met, and they're all familiar with him already. They were pretty ticked. They got fleeced on that trade. So bring them back.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, Cespedes was pretty great for them after that deal, and then they went and decided to.
I'm being sarcastic. I'm being slightly sarcastic, but still, bring Michael Fulmer back. You're familiar with him. You know what they have with him, and he would really help out the Mets in a situation where they're trying to fend off the Braves and the Marlins. The Marlins are 3 games under 500, but still, you know what I mean. Like the Marlins have, there's a lot of good young talent on the Marlins squad. Go ahead.
If the Marlins get into that playoff race, at all, they have a weak bullpen. They could be a trade partner.
Oh yeah, and that, you know what? I'm glad you said that too, because I did mention there was one guy in the Marlins organization, that I think would be a good fit. It depends. I mean, it depends on the pedigree and all that, but I think somebody like JJ Bidet, because the Marlins have a pretty stacked outfield, but Bidet has been one of those guys that hasn't really lived up to. I mean, he's had a good year this year. Heading into he had some questions heading into this year, correct, Chris? People weren't sure if he was going to be a thing or.
No, the questions I think are still there. He really struggled last year. He kind of picked it up a little bit in the Arizona Fall League, and he's hitting for power this year, but he's not hitting for average at all. I think he's close to 200. So, I mean, that could be like a change of scenery guy.
Or I was thinking I was thinking Mets to the shortstop Ronnie Mercurio, but he's kind of, in some ways, looking at his numbers, he's taking a step back this year in Double A, in his second year in Double A. So I did see him for the Rumble Ponies play. So against Erie, again, that's Max Scherzer's line. I don't want to be a Rumble Pony. I want to be a Met. But nonetheless, JJ, the reason why I mentioned that is because maybe the Tigers veteran who's looking for a change of scenery. So that's a good point. So those are the names. So the next question, let's see here. As my tabs are running really slow here. So we're talking to myself here. Okay, here's the next from at Alex Herman. Skubal has obviously taken a 180 in performances past 3 starts. Any ideas, guesses why, what's going on with him? Chris.
I don't think, I don't know, we mentioned this earlier today, but I don't think it's anything in particular. I think the underlying stats are still pretty good. I think his slider has been getting hit a lot more the last 3 or 4 outings than it had been all earlier in this year. And I think it's more of a mechanical issue. And I kind of suspect there might be something tender going on. Like he might have some tender ribs or something like that, because he doesn't seem to be finishing his pitches to the point where he's struggling to locate inside to right-handed batters, basically to his glove side, basically. So he's not throwing his fastball inside. He's not throwing. You've been talking about that forever, right? That you throwing guys inside is a huge part of anybody's game. And for whatever reason, he at least in the Red Sox outing, he didn't really even seem to try to throw inside. So, I don't think that's part of a game plan. I almost just feel like there's something going on with him where he's not comfortable throwing in. And the results are he's getting hit kind of hard And but again, like I said, the underlying numbers are still pretty good. Strikeouts are there. The walks aren't super high. He walked a couple guys there in that Boston game, and he just looked exhausted. It's a stupid stadium. He got caught by a garage door and a couple foul balls that probably would have been caught in other stadiums. So I'm not too worried about Skubal. I do think there might be something small wrong with him, but I suspect he'll bounce back pretty soon.
Yeah, I'm not really worried about him either. I think it just could be some of the, like I said, we said this yesterday. I think some of the lineups he's facing are really tough. Yooper, what's your thought about it?
I was going to bring up the that Boston game especially. He looked like everything was up and everything was over the plate. He wasn't getting inside. Those first 10 starts he made this year, especially the ones where he was really on his game, he dominated the inner half quite a bit, I thought. And that hasn't been the case the last couple times out. Mostly probably just a blip. I mean, until they tell us he's hurting or this continues on for 3 or 4 more starts, then maybe you worry, but I think he's going to be fine. He's, Boston's a pretty good team. People forget that too. They're going to get you once in a while in their park. Yeah,
I mean, Toronto, he also faced Toronto too. And so Toronto is no slouch.
They don't suck.
Yeah, they don't suck at all. There's not a weak. That lineup is insane. So, but that was a good question. Now, this question is, I'll go back to a draft one. Actually, this one kind of is intriguing. This is one from at K Turret and those counselor. Yeah, I always wonder who that guy or who that person is, because his picture and everything. But he's turned up the flame on the Avila chat. But this is his question: your over/under on combined future Rays baseball all-star Isaac Paredes plus Tigers bust of the decade Austin Meadows bombs in 2022. I predict 25 with Meadows contributing 4 home runs to that total. #fire Illich. Gentlemen, I don't know what to do that. I don't know who wants to start that question first, but
I will put the over/under on Isaac Paredes' total home runs this year. He has 9 right now. I'll put it at 17.5.
All right. Chris?
And he'll be right in that range. I think he's going to slow down.
I was still thinking about 15. He's obviously bombing the ball lately, but I do feel like the Rays have enviable depth just about everywhere, and at some point he's going to cool off, or maybe they're just putting him in really good situations to succeed. But I don't see him hitting 20, 25 home runs this year, and I feel like Meadows is, based on his track record, he's got to hit some home runs, right? I feel like he'll hit 10. So, yeah, I'll take the over/under at 25 overall between those two, but I'll take the over, I guess.
I'll take the over with Paredes hitting 18. I'll go 18, and then I'll go Meadows having he'll hit just under double digits, so maybe 9. Because he's been injured and what have you. And as far as a bust is concerned, once teams started putting 4 outfielders out there, it's kind of limited him a little bit. But I'm not going to make any excuses for it. It is what it is. But that's where I stand with that.
Well, I mean, boy, he misses the time with vertigo. Now he's got COVID, right?
Yeah, he's had a rough. And what I mean by excuses is that does suck. It sucks, and it's unfortunate for him. And I just think that some of the fans are a little too harsh on him about that, because for somebody to have vertigo and COVID, and you're constantly being insulted. You're not 100. When was the last time we don't know when the last time he was 100%. But to call him a bust already is ridiculous.
He's not a bust. The guy's a talented player. He's got to get through it. He's got to get this health system, cleared out. We don't know about COVID. I mean, truth be told, I tested positive the other day. I've had a runny nose. I'm fine. But so I feel very confident about. I could have, if I was I took the week off umpiring, but I could have went out there, no problem. So we don't. But did it affect him harder? Has he been down for the count here for a week? We don't know. So I got in trouble last time I speculated about his health, so I better not do it again. But I don't think he's going to be a bust. I think that if they can get this cleared up after the All-Star break, give him a fresh start, and maybe he has a decent second half.
All right. Yeah. I think that's perfectly fine. So the next question comes from our friend over at Deadly Ninja Bees at Deadly_Bees. Draft question time. If Avila thinks his job is secure, does that guarantee a first-round bat? And the second question, if he believes he's getting fired, will he, quote, take the best player available on his way out the door? Yooper, I'll have you start that one.
Well, I think you should always, within reason, I think you should always take the best player available. So I don't know if that matters, whether he's staying or going. I just know this. I keep hearing the Tigers have to take bats, and I get it. Trust me, I get it. People don't have to on Twitter have to tell me why. I know why that thought is out there. But right now, where they are, the 12th pick in the draft, a lot of teams look to be taking hitters. The pitching is getting kind of maligned a little bit. That's available. So now, when you're picking 12th, there's a good chance they're going to be taking the 9th hitter off the board and leaving potentially the 3rd pitcher off the board. Leaving that person on the board. Where's the value? I would just be chasing the value, I think, at this point. So is the 3rd pitcher better than your 9th hitter? Okay, I'll take the pitcher if that's the case.
All right. Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that Avila. I think that in general, they always talk themselves into taking who they think is the best player available. People will say, like, they don't take position into account, but I'm pretty sure they do. I think that has an effect on it. And this just, as you've said, this is a position player heavy draft, at least at the top. I think there will be good pitchers who come out of this draft, and it won't shock me if the best pitcher comes in the 2nd or 3rd round at all. There are a lot of pitchers who are injured and have question marks, and some teams are going to get some values later. I don't think the Tigers are going to go basically the 2 pitchers they might take. You might throw Rocker in there, but I think it would be Rock Porter or Dylan Lesko at 12, and I don't think they would take either of those guys.
Dylan.
I think that when it comes down to it, there's kind of like this. There are various tiers of hitters in this draft class. They're not going to get one of the top 4 or 5 hitters. That's just not going to happen. But then the next group is kind of fluid. And could Gavin Cross fall to them? Yes, I think they jump at that. Chase Young, possibly. Daniel Susak, I think, is a real possibility. Zach Neto is a real possibility. So I think they'll probably take a hitter, and I don't think it really matters that Avila might be off the door. I think that's just the way that the draft looks right now.
Yeah, I think that the fact that Baseball America, like I said earlier, the whole idea of trolling, I want to say trolling, that's not what they're trying to do in terms of speculating who the Tigers are going to pick. I think just about, to me, I would agree with him. I believe he would just be the best player. The Tigers' best positional player available, not by pitcher. I think it's just going to be best positional player available, whether it's catcher or what have you. The Tigers need everything. I mean, let's face it. And again, you don't draft by need, you draft by most talented player. But the Tigers, if you look at their outfield situation right now in the minors, there's a huge significant drop off. There's a huge significant drop off everywhere. And there's no, again, Dylan Dingler's having a good season. He's a good defensive catcher, but Tigers still need catching. I mean, Alonso might be a first baseman someday. Who knows? The Crouch, Chris's fanboy obsession with Josh Crouch is coming together nicely. So,
fanboy obsession.
No, I'm just joking, because the reason why I say that is because you're not one of those guys. If I would say the one thing I know about you consistently, you're never too high, never too low on a prospect. You're right in the middle. I'm the one with the Andre Lipsius I'm always still rooting for him to, what have you. But you've been pretty vocal about Josh Crouch this year, and it's a little different for me. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not.
Ellipsius has been great lately. No, Josh Crouch is slumping a little bit. I don't think he's a world beater. I just think like, hey, there might be something there. That's all. Yeah. Josh Crouch, and it's a great name for catcher. It's like it's secondary to like Johnny Squats.
So what do you think most people have against Kumar Rocker right now? I got a lot of pushback. I got a note from even Dan Hasty yesterday that I'm pushing that too much.
Oh man, if you get a note from Dan Hasty, that's saying something.
I know.
I mean, number one is the pitching in general. I don't think that people want a pitcher. I think that people would be pretty upset if they dropped another pitcher, given the state of the system. Which is funny because like last year, it felt like they didn't really have any pitching, and then this year it seems like hey, they've got like 4 or 5 legit guys. But also, I just think people are like, what the hell is going on with his arm? Like the medicals, it's just such a confusing. I think the one thing that was a couple of weeks ago, they talked about it on the MLB Pipeline podcast, and Jim Callis was like, all I've heard, the closest thing to anything I've heard is it was both an elbow and a shoulder.
Really?
But he said like he still that it was just a rumor. Like he doesn't have any information. Teams are asking him, he doesn't know. So. But the one thing that they mentioned was that the Mets were so concerned that they didn't even offer him like a super rock bottom deal. They offered him $0 because they didn't want him to sign. They valued this year's pick that much more than him signing. So who knows? Who knows what they saw? But he's been out pitching this year, and his arm looks pretty good.
He's throwing well. Velocity is right where it's supposed to be. He's throwing his slider as much as normal. He's not walking anybody.
Yeah, so it's I don't know. He still, even with all that, it would shock me if he goes before the comp round. I think somebody is going to take a chance on him in those like and when they get the medicals, and if they're okay with it, then they'll give him maybe a little extra money.
Well, I think Keith Law had him at 17. Baseball America had him around 20.
Yeah, and maybe a team there will just go, hey, what the hell? But I feel like it's going to be a team that has multiple picks in the top 50 or whatever, has a little extra money to play with, and they're willing to take the chance. But who knows? Maybe his medicals will get passed around this year, and it'll be like, hey, this is fine.
We've seen that guy on a big stage, and we've seen him perform on a big stage, and he's not scared. Yep. He's got the stuff. I'm still convinced he's probably your best bet in this pitching class, at least of the ones who aren't hurt. I bet on the talent.
And that is it for the questions, and that is wrapping up the podcast. But if you're watching us on YouTube right now, I don't think we promoted this enough. We're going to be promoting this a lot more, but join us. And first, before I forget, I think we did this earlier, but we're mentioning congrats to the Woodward Pistons. Everybody at Woodward for handling the Pistons draft coverage so well. Did a really good job. The whole entire team over there, Detroit Kool-Aid, Jeff, there's Sean, all those guys over there did a fantastic job with the draft coverage. But we are up next in terms of drafts. Sunday, July 17th, we'll be live at Woodward Studios with Trevor Huth, who will be in town from Illinois. Brandon Day, I think, is going to be with us, and I believe he will be in studio as well. And so will Scott Bentley of Locked On Tigers, Justin Latta, and Willie. I forgot the guy's last name right now.
Hood.
And
Hood, right?
Oh, yeah, Willie Hood. Yeah, Willie Hood and Pat Elton Jr., all from Guardians Baseball Insider. Pat is now writing for Baseball Prospectus, so we will have numerous guests. We're also working on another guest, James Fox from FutureSox.com. And, wall-to-wall draft coverage. We're going to be covering it all in this year. No pool this year, unfortunately, but we're going to be in a professional setting, and thanks to Woodward Sports, we'll be broadcasting live on their main channel, I believe, as well. So there's a lot, which, by the way, they got over 4,000 views live tonight. So last year we did over 1,000, and I was having technical difficulties. But what is the great thing about working for Woodward is I don't have to worry about graphics. I don't have to worry about all the little stuff that I had to do 100 times. Now I can focus on more of the content stuff. So Sunday, July 17th, Tigers draft show. So join us. Detroit Tigers live show is is this the third year we've done it in a row? Third year.
At least third.
Yeah. Okay, technically it's the fourth, but this is the third where we've actually.
Yeah, because I thought you came out. Did you come out from the Mize draft?
Yes, I did.
You did.
Yes, I did.
Because that was the first year where you jumped in the pool, right? Because it was.
Yeah.
Was it? Was the Orioles took
No,
second?
the curse. That was when they took the guy with
It would have been
diabetes.
19. 19 was the first year because Rutschman went first. And, I don't know, whatever.
I thought I was there for Mize though, right? Wasn't I? Or did
Maybe?
we did? What was the year that I got a really massive migraine for being out of your house?
I think it was either 18 or 19.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, you know what? By the way, the question you somehow he doesn't really know how to make a pizza. I don't know. Little Caesar's deep dish is not bad. But anyway, enough about that. But yeah, Tigers live draft show, and Yooper will probably even show up at some point. We're gonna rotate it in there all the way from Iowa.
Oh, yeah.
But either way, I'm really stoked about it, and we'll be pressing on some coverage. And there'll be some good news next week, but I can't formally announce anything involving Woodward Tigers. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's not a bad thing, but more on that to come. So before we get out of here, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. And we will be back next week. There'll be some more of those tidbits. If you like those Woodward Tiger stuff, we've been in the short stuff. Go to our YouTube channel, Woodward Tigers. Please subscribe to that. Check out the one we did with. We took Lynn Henning to task today a little bit more with the Tarik Skubal trade stuff, and there's so much more. So all our great content over at woodwardsports.com for myself and Chris and Yooper. We'll see you next week. Have a good week, everybody.